Hello there, Inspired Tenno. In one of my most recent videos where I ranked all of the primed Warframes for the primed Resurgence, I declared SARYN as the most powerful frame in the game, or at least as the best frame in the game. And I know that some of you will be raising your brows at that. You'll say, well, that's not true. Obviously, someone like Cora or Octavia will do much better in something like Endless Survival. So if SARYN is beat in some categories, how can you declare her the best frame in the game? Well, I am willing to do so because first up, I think that SARYN is one of those Warframes that falls into the category of being broken. I think she's outright overpowered, and yes, other frames may fall into the same category as being overpowered, but in terms of being so strong that it trivializes the content, once you passes that line, it doesn't really matter how much more powerful a frame is. And normally when I do these builds, I don't really talk about the Warframe's abilities because normally it's a build for a specific ability. However, for SARYN, I feel like there is, for the most part, only one SARYN build, and it's this one. And basically, what makes SARYN so strong is her first ability. It inflicts these spores on enemies, which then, when the enemy is killed, or when the spores are hit by a weapon manually, then they will pop and they will spread to nearby enemies. Now, while there is at least one active spore, then the damage of these spores will continue to increase and become more powerful over time. And then, if all spores are removed at any point, then the damage will rapidly decrease. But you can still apply a spore before it reaches 0 and then retain some of that damage. And again, that is primarily where her damage comes from. The second ability is Mold, which creates a clone of herself and gives her some movement speed, which is not really that great, which is why I always replace it with something. This here is really only used for Steel Path for her very specific melee based build, and it gives her more melee damage in the form of Toxin, and it also allows you to pop the spores instantly when hitting an enemy. But then we have Miasma, and yes, her first ability is broken, but this ability is also very, very, very broken. As you can see, it deals almost 350 viral damage per second while it's active, and it multiplies the damage of the spores by 4 again while it's active. I mean, what you have to keep in mind here is that look at its range. Look at the insanity that is its range. It has 47 meters range. And what this does, essentially, is that it quadruples the damage of your spores, deals damage itself, applies viral, which is the best status effect in the game right now, to all enemies within 47 meters, and this build has about 4 seconds duration on it, so it will do that 4 times. And on top of that, it goes through walls, which means that everything within 47 meters will be hit, and on top of that, it stuns all enemies while it's active within 47 meters radius. The combination of her first and her fourth ability, the synergy of that is so incredibly powerful that there really is no content that you can't do just with this. As you will see on screen right now, I killed the Acolyte in the Steel Path, and without ever attacking it, my spores just spread to them because I killed some other enemy, and then they slowly decay and die over 30 seconds. And I don't think that there's, with the exception of one frame, Octavia, I don't think there's any other frame that can really do that, just with their abilities. And what sets SARYN apart from Octavia is that SARYN is actually fun to play. If you're playing Octavia, then you're just sitting in a corner, doing nothing, being invisible, while your hammer kills all the enemies. And yes, that's very powerful, and yes, and it's viable with level 9,999 enemies, but it's so boring. I mean, oh my god, I mean, who wants to sit around for that long just to get to that point, right? SARYN is really fun because her gameplay is naturally high octane in the sense that you have to kill the enemies with the spores on them before they die from the spores in order to spread them and not lose all of the damage that you build up in your one. Because of this, you have to be very active, and this is something that resulted from her rework, which was supposed to nerf her, but it has only made her stronger. Now, let's talk Steel Path as well while we're here. This is the build which I like to use for the Steel Path with a little bit more survivability. Very importantly, I'm using Arcane Guardian, which, to be honest with you, I probably should be using here as well, now that I think about it. Guardian is just one of those arcanes which it's so insanely powerful in many ways because it gives you so much armor. You have 15% chance on hit to gain 900 armor, and the damage reduction which that provides is pretty insane. You can see here just the 712 I have right here gives me 70% damage reduction, and then you get 900 armor on top of that. So that's no small amount. Now again, this build focuses more on survivability, and it does so because on the Steel Path you need to be able to take a hit, then get back up, and also because of this I like to run her with the Ensnare, which I mean, in case you don't know, this is one of the best CC abilities in the game, and it can even be used on the Acolytes to completely prevent them from moving or attacking. And it's one of the few CCs which can actually do that, though you have to put it directly on the Acolytes in order for it to work. My melee weapon of choice is the Cronin Prime, and I like to use this build on it. Condition Overload is great here because SARYN is constantly applying corrosive, and she's constantly providing viral, which means that it's actually not a great idea for me to be using viral. But okay, here we go. A few corrections later. We now have gas instead of viral, and this is again because you are guaranteed to apply viral with your ultimate, and you want to have as many status effects active at once as possible. So we're using Molten Impact instead. I've also replaced Blood Rush for Weeping Wounds, just for a little bit of extra status chance. Well, a lot of extra status chance in fact. Now let's talk about what SARYN's good at and what she's not so good at. First up we have Exterminate. She's alright, she's above average. Then we have Capture, and no, she's not particularly good at Capture, but who runs a optimized build for Capture, right? And then we have Sabotage, which I'll say that she's quite bad at as well. I bring these three up first because, let's be real, these are some of the missions that you will be spending the least amount of time on. And then we have Spy. And unless you're farming Iwara, you're probably not going to be playing a lot of Spy, but obviously she's quite bad at that as well. But then we have Interception, and she's great at Interception. We have Survival, she's great at Survival. She's one of the best at Survival. Defense, yes, she's one of the best defense frames, at least when it comes to killing the enemies quickly. You might need to bring something like Frost for defending the objective if you are planning on staying there for many rounds. Not sure why you would do that, but still, she's pretty damn great. Then we have Evasion, she's good at Excavation, almost great. And then we have Sanctuary Onslaught, which SARYN is the best. Irrefutably, she is the best at Sanctuary, Elite, Onslaught, in that order. I don't think you can really argue against this, because the fact that there are so many enemies spawning all the time at a medium level where you can spread the spores constantly and keep stacking the damage up to at least 2,000-3,000. This means that you will pretty much kill everything the instant that you place a spore on something. So yeah. Then we have Railjack. I know that you probably don't play Railjack because no one seems to do, but yes, he's really good at that as well. A lot of the skirmish missions, which are the ones that I'll consider Railjack, as the rest is like 80% normal mission, a lot of the enemies have a lot of armor, and SARYN removes 80% of that just by using her first ability once. And then let's talk about what SARYN is viable for. SARYN is viable for literally any mission. And the build that I just showed you, you know, even without the Umbra mods, even without the Prime mods, it's absolutely viable for everything, and that's why I think it's so great. This sort of, maybe not budget, but relatively cheap build will allow you to complete pretty much anything in the game. And it's not like you're scraping by with some of it. You are able to complete pretty much everything at a reasonable speed. And the reason why this is that Warframe is a game about killing hordes, and SARYN does that really well. And because of that, I think it's fair to say that she is the best Warframe in the game.